We're Virginians. They're at the birth of this country. Strong enough to fight for liberty. Strong enough to make dreams come true. Strong enough to break the mold. And strong enough to get through this. Because even though we're apart, united, we're unstoppable. Virginia together.
I want to begin today by saying I'm sorry.
No justice!
No peace!
This is a black-owned business that's been here for generations.
What we really should be talking about today is George Floyd's murder.
We as a community have to step up and take our city back.
Protest all you want. Demonstrate all you want. The minute you start damaging, the minute you start looting, you're arrested and you're going to go to jail.
If you know the history of America, you know that how this nation was formed was in riot and protest. You ever hear of the Boston Tea Party?
What was so remarkable with the George Floyd protest was how quickly it turned when it came to the monuments on Monument Avenue.
Heck yeah. Heck yes, that's progress. This generation say, hey, if you're not going to take them down, we're going to take them down.
What I like about the young people today is that they're saying, we're not going to take this.
People in the streets are arguing against systemic racism. That has never been done before.
Chaos in Richmond for the fourth consecutive night as the focus turns to monuments. We'll have the latest on conditions all over the city.
120-year-old black-owned business vandalized amid the chaos. How people in Richmond have stepped up to protect it.
Enough is enough. We can't sit idly by and just allow Mr. Waller to clean up that mess.
We question leaders after videos surface of Richmond police macing a man inside his own home. 233 people were arrested after the 8 p.m. curfew went into effect. The chief says 23 guns were taken during the arrest, 6 of which have been stolen from a pawn shop on Broad Street. He also says his officers did not target those demonstrators who were only breaking curfew.
Across the city, we made no arrests whatsoever for curfew unless you were involved in violence and destruction of our city.
We're breaking into your local programming right now to bring you breaking news where the city has just begun the process of taking down the Stonewall Jackson statue on Monument Avenue. A large crowd is gathered there at Monument Avenue and the Boulevard. Our Brendan King, as you can see, is standing by there. This is a 17.5-foot tall equestrian figure on top of a 20.5-foot tall pedestal. And we want to go to our Brendan King right now for a look at what exactly is going on there in that area. Brendan?
Without a doubt, Cheryl, this is a historical moment that hundreds of people have gathered here on Monument Avenue and the Arthur Ashe Boulevard to watch city crews take down or prepare to take down the Stonewall Jackson Monument. I want to step out of the way and just show you what the efforts are right now. So you see a crane has positioned itself right beside the statue here on Monument Avenue. Beside that, a flatbed truck that is going to carry the statue away. And so it began the day at a city council meeting at 11 o'clock, a special meeting where city council members were prepared to hear from Mayor Stoney. He proposed a resolution calling for the immediate removal of the Confederate statues and monuments here in the city of Richmond.
And there it goes. The detachment.
I keep thinking about my grandparents, and I think about the things that they told me about Richmond when they were coming up, and the things that I experienced living with them, and the things they would tell me. And I kind of wish they were here to see it. I wish my mom was here to see it, because she used to make different comments about how she hated Monument Avenue.
A large group of protesters wait for answers at City Hall.
Stoney! Stoney!
A day after Richmond police tear-gassed peaceful protesters on Monument Avenue.
Today.
Crowds stretched the entire block as Mayor LeVar Stoney and Police Chief William Smith stood before protesters for more than an hour.
I want to begin today by saying I'm sorry.
Don't try!
Every peaceful protester should be allowed to peacefully protest. That's the bottom line. That is your right. And we violated that yesterday.
So we go organize, all right? We're going to continue marching peacefully. I promise you, all right? Have a good day. I love you. Let's go. Let's continue marching. All right?
I cannot know the depth of your pain. But what I can do is stand with you, and I can support you. Symbols matter too, and Virginia has never been willing to deal with symbols. Until now.
Richmond is no longer the capital of the Confederacy.
This is about keeping the guns out of hands of prohibitive individuals.
The lawmakers don't understand because they're not living this.
These are policies and rules that should have passed a long, long time ago.
None of us have committed a crime. Go take care of the criminals. Don't take the guns from us.
We lost over 1,000 Virginians.
They're going to pass what they want. They don't care what I have to say.
We're excited that we now have this policy.
The crowds have cleared out around Capitol Square, but the debate over gun control bills continues tonight.
Let's recap what happened today here at the Capitol. The Virginia Citizens Defense League held their annual Gun Lobby Day rally on Capitol Square today. This year, as you'll recall, due to the election back in November of 2019, Democrats took control of both houses of the legislature. That means they're in control, and they plan to pass several gun control bills. Just a few hours ago, we learned that the number was 22,000. That's how many people turned up at the rally today.
Our Melissa Hippolyte sat down with 3 people whose lives have been upended by violent crime, and she tells us how those experiences have led to 3 different opinions about guns.
Mark Whitfield knows Carter Jones Park in South Richmond well. He grew up here. His daughter, 9-year-old Markiah Dixon, died here.
My baby ain't even get to make it C10.
A stray bullet killed Markiah as she played in the park on Memorial Day.
I don't know, everything stopped to me that day, so my life is totally different now. Like, fun ain't fun to me no more.
In response to the shooting, Richmond City Council approved an ordinance to ban guns in public parks and city-owned buildings. But Virginia law allows guns there, so the measure is just symbolic.
My son and my daughter.
Goddard's son, Colin, was shot in the mass shooting at Virginia Tech in 2007. He survived.
Yes, they're both tech grads.
But the shooting and Goddard's visit to the state legislature soon after lit a fire inside of him.
You know, I almost lost my son, and that made a significant change to my life.
He believes the government can reduce gun violence.
I'd love things to be done based on research, not just on anecdote, not just based on opinion.
Anything that's a gun-free zone I don't carry, but other than that, yeah, I always have it.
Savannah Lindquist sees things differently. Lindquist, who lives in Norfolk, says she was raped her senior year at Temple University.
To be assaulted is devastating. It completely uprooted the path of my life.
She believes that if she'd been allowed to have her gun at school, she could have potentially prevented the rape.
But I do know that I was denied the chance of being able to defend myself.
What's your name?
Brandon.
You know, Brandon was talking to me. Brandon looked over to me and said, "Mom, don't leave me." The worst thing that we ever did in our lives was come to Cumberland Hospital. They hurt my son. I demanded that they release him, and they did. I'm gonna make sure that those who made my son suffer and those who've made all of those children suffer pay. Because the truth will come out, I told him. I'm gonna make sure of it. If it's the last breath I take.
Either you are truly a compassionate doctor, or B,
You're covering up something.
Laura French takes their evidence to the highest office in the state, a Problem Solvers two-part investigation.
You're messing with the wrong mom.
They are startling accusations of abuse and neglect. Boys and girls allegedly victimized while they were patients at a children's hospital in New Kent County. Now, CBS 6 has confirmed that facility is at the center of a sprawling criminal investigation that dates back more than 2 years.
And tonight, a Problem Solvers investigation in the works for 6 months. Laura French lays out the allegations that have been made by numerous parents, including a mother who claims her son's brief stay at that hospital nearly cost him his life.
What's your name?
Brandon Petro.
There's the happy.
Affectionately loves on his mother Renee, as he did in much happier times.
Let's take a picture. 1, 2, smile, smile.
But weeks after this video was taken, these lives would be forever changed, just not the way they'd hoped for.
This is us. We're on the medevac now.
The Florida family made the decision to transfer care for Brandon's complex medical needs to Cumberland Hospital in New Kent County. They'd arrive at the Children and Adolescent Facility September 6, 2017, unable to get into the acute unit Renee says was promised to them.
Brandon's very complex and he needs 24/7 care. He said, oh, all of our units have 24/7 care. He will be just fine.
Brandon, who suffers from a seizure disorder and other medical issues, got settled into a room on the neurology unit.
Brandon looked over to me and said, Mom, don't leave me.
Those would be the last words this mother would ever hear her son speak. Despite being discouraged from visiting for a couple weeks to allow Brandon to get acclimated, Renee says she'd return days later.
And that was his fall, which is infected.
To find her son injured.
Nobody could tell me how he fell.
Renee says the incident was not documented in his chart, nor was she notified.
I mean, yeah, he couldn't stand up. His room was filthy. It was disgusting. I found him food in his mouth, not bathed, didn't shave him, and there was always excuses.
And while she says his health was rapidly declining, her concerns were growing.
I left Cumberland and I called TRICARE and I told them something's not right, okay? I'm gonna initiate Brandon's release. We're gonna put an alert and start an investigation.
In the meantime, Brandon was moved to the acute unit, but Renee had no intentions of leaving him there.
When I called Cumberland Hospital, 2 nurses told me that if I don't get my son out of the hospital, he was gonna die. They said, get your son out as soon as possible.
That would happen the evening of September 22nd, 2017, when Renee arrived at Cumberland unannounced.
Brandon was unresponsive. When I walked into Brandon's room, he was seizing and nobody was with him. He had a fever. He wasn't attended to. He was not responding to me. I tried to wake him up. He did not open his eyes. He lost so much weight.
More than 30 residents have now died from the coronavirus, and more than 100 patients and staff members have tested positive. Tonight, a Problem Solvers investigation. Our Melissa Hippolyte explores how the situation turned so quickly at one nursing home.
Kathy Campbell moves determined yet nervous.
Donna, are you there?
Toward her brother's room at Canterbury Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in Henrico.
Somebody's going in there to open up the curtains for me.
He suffers from Huntington's disease, but the facility is no longer allowing visitors.
Is he doing okay?
All because of the words that Kathy is about to hear.
Did he test positive? He did? Is Is he showing any signs? No? But he is positive. God. Babe, we love you.
61-year-old John Kozak is now one of more than 100 patients at Canterbury who have tested positive for COVID-19. 32 of them have died so far. As the virus has spread, loved ones on the outside say they feel helpless.
I'm just praying that at some point it just stops.
But how did Canterbury get here? Was there anything that could have been done to prevent this outbreak?
We know that this is an extremely difficult time for the residents of Canterbury Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center.
The head of the Richmond and Henrico Health Departments, Dr. Danny Avula, says testing failures are to blame.
The severe lack of testing and the turnaround on testing time at the very beginning of this might have contributed to a scenario where there was a lot of disease spread before we even knew this was COVID-19 in the facility.
To that point, a timeline provided to us by Henrico County shows emergency calls to the facility over the past several months. 911 calls there started going up in February, skyrocketing by the final week of the month. But the first case of COVID-19 was not officially confirmed at Canterbury until March 18th. Yet, testing of every single resident and most of the staff at Canterbury was not done until the week of March 30th. County Manager John Vitolkis says the county even offered the facility tests the previous week, but Canterbury declined.
He has more sources, breaks more stories before anyone else. For 20 years, John Burkett has been Central Virginia's crime insider.
I'm proposing an amendment to the state budget that would give the Department of Corrections authority to release offenders who have 1 year or less left in their sentences.
As the coronavirus spreads, Governor Ralph Northam wants to create more space inside Virginia's prisons. But he says an early release should only be available to a certain type of inmate.
They must have demonstrated good behavior and not be a threat to public safety,
which some say calls into question a recent decision made by the State Parole Board.
Mike ran out of chances on November 13th, 1979, laying in a pool of his own blood with 5 gunshot wounds to his face and head.
In a case unrelated to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board voted 4-1 to release a man who murdered a young Richmond police officer some 40 years ago.
We have 5 people, 4 of whom said the life of a police officer is not worth a hell of a lot.
Vincent Lamont Martin shot and killed patrolman Michael Connors on November 13th, 1979. Martin and a group of accomplices had just robbed a 7-Eleven store in the city's Monroe Ward neighborhood and were driving the wrong way down Madison Street when Connors pulled them over. Investigators say Martin first shot the officer in the neck, then stood over him and fired several more shots into his head.
It was just a flat-out execution.
Both Connors and the gunman were just 23 years old. At the time of the killing, Martin already had a long record of violent crimes.
What has Vincent Martin done in the last 40 years to show that he is a responsible individual to go back into society?
We asked Virginia's Public Safety Secretary Brian Moran about the board's decision.
Clearly, the pain and anguish is being relived all over again 40 years later. And so our hearts go out to the family, the Richmond Police Department, those who knew him. This was unfortunate, but a decision that the parole board stands by.
He didn't get to have a wife and kids, and probably by now grandkids.
Deputy Commonwealth Attorney in Richmond, Leonard Berry, wrote in a note to Maureen Clements, the sister of Michael O'Connor, that this is the worst miscarriage of justice he's seen in 40 years.
We see them compete, striving for greatness, but there's always more to their story. An unforgettable touchdown, a story of survival, a grade school go-kart champion, and a record-breaking triathlete. Go beyond the roster with Lane Casadante.
Sometimes you gotta wonder, you gotta dare to believe.
looks at me and says, I'm blind, I'm not weak.
If you commit to anything, you could accomplish it.
Good job.
To have USA on my chest, you know, running at the Olympics, I can't even articulate how proud I would be.
It's hard, you know, being disabled, in particular someone with a disability that requires a wheelchair. That's our job to help change those perceptions.
Right there, that's what I want.
In the 11 years that Jason Elkins has been a personal trainer, he's seen every level of athlete come through his doors.
There you go.
And he has found a way to make them all better.
Getting that body square.
From NFL players to wannabe weekend warriors.
Big shrug at the top.
Working with sprinters requires a different course of action.
Good. We want to make sure that their core, that their legs, their upper back is strong, so therefore they're able to apply more force into the ground.
Elkins has worked with the differently abled in the past as well, mainly wheelchair racers. But when Antoine Craig walked into his gym, Elkins was stopped in his tracks.
I didn't catch it the first time. What sport are we doing? He said, track. I said, what?
Antoine is nearly completely blind.
10. Good job. That's what we want.
Like once I crossed the finish line, it was just a feeling of like accomplishment that I at that time I wasn't getting, because I was like enduring so much loss. Like I'm losing my vision, I'm losing like friends, I'm away from my family, and you're just taking so many L's. Like that moment when I crossed the finish line, it's just like, oh, like okay, this feels great.
Everybody has a story. Professional artist, nationally acclaimed guitarist, professional wrestler fighting cancer. From shy child to street performer, producing music in the pandemic. The king of Carytown. Meet the most interesting people in Central Virginia. I Have a Story with Greg McQuaid.
This is so cool. Unbelievable.
Real exciting. And the crowd goes wild.
This is just an unbelievable story.
Griffin Phillips Leisman is flying a mission from the heart. 100 miles from Harrisonburg to Chesterfield.
Good morning.
Yay!
This new friendship started with a phone call to St. Matthias Episcopal Church. Linda didn't believe the stranger on the line.
He said, I'd like to bring food. And I'm like, wait, what?
Griffin promised a donation of supplies for the church's stressed food pantry.
The first call was quite interesting. They weren't sure if we were either pranking them or joking.
A godsend out of thin air.
I don't know how he found us. I have no idea. He just picked us.
Virginia Airfeed, that is our organization that we created.
Griffin would fly a plane load of nourishment.
He said, well, I think about 460 pounds of food, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
You're gonna find flour in here and jellos and things like that. We can go anywhere in the state and we can get there in 2 hours. So it's just really a time-effective process.
What sets this donor apart from others? His age.
When he told me he was 16, I couldn't even speak for a minute.
Yes, when most teens are learning to parallel park, Griffin files his flight plan.
I'll tell you, it was quite a trip today.
He's been gone for 79 years.
No one remembers him personally.
There really aren't words, but it's very long overdue.
They never even met the man.
He's been gone longer than I've been alive.
The Churchill native died when Japanese torpedoes slammed into the USS Oklahoma. Andrew was just 26. The unidentified sailor was buried in Hawaii. Last fall, forensics teams identify Fireman First Class Schmitz using a sibling's DNA, the first of many steps to bring Andrew back. His remains flown thousands of miles. The funeral procession stretches nearly a mile, moving through Richmond and beyond. Farther down the road, nearly 900 students at Grange Hall Elementary in Chesterfield witness a rolling history lesson along Hull Street Road. a few miles away. Andrew's odyssey is nearing an end. An overflow crowd of mourners gathers at Virginia Veterans Cemetery at Amelia.
It was moving. I cried.
A fitting farewell for an uncle they never knew.
I had been told that a lot of the elderly veterans would show up, but I had no idea that it would be this many people.
Andrew Schmitz.
Rest easy, Uncle Andrew.
Is a stranger no more.
Happy birthday, dear Norbert. Happy birthday to you.
I think it's just so unusual to have the neighbors come together and celebrate a birthday to an old geezer like me. But I've got the most wonderful neighbors in the world.
I guess it's just something that I'm put here to do.
A divine calling to help others.
I didn't even want to join.
Well, not in the beginning.
I was always the nervous type. I never wanted to be in the medical field, or I didn't feel like that was my calling.
Back in 1984, Stony Creek Volunteer Rescue Squad was in need of volunteers.
A lot of the people had grown, become elderly, and the rescue squad needed more members in order to keep operating.
To meet the need, Carolyn joined, volunteering alongside other family members.
It was an opportunity.
Now 60 years old,
It's my home away from home.
she's been here
30 plus.
often alongside her husband Steve, who also volunteers.
I now realize that it's my calling.
And more than that,
I truly believe my life has been extended because of me volunteering in this community and being able to help so many people.
extended, well, you should know Carolyn has had
3
heart attacks since 2004.
She's still 100% dedicated.
In 2019, Stony Creek Volunteer Rescue Squad ran 643 calls. Carolyn was on
Probably half.
Well, today is the big day, the kickoff of our week-long Virginia Together fundraiser. The goal here is to help those in our community
Who are struggling to put food on the table and keep a
roof over their heads.
It is a true community outreach. Now, volunteers include local and national celebrities like Grammy Award-winning musician Bruce Hornsby from my hometown.
COVID has just directly affected so many people that I know personally.
This is a time for us to come together, so it's an honor to be here.
People need help. We love CBS 6, and we are Virginia Together.
The amount of incredible work and support the RVA family puts together, it's great.
God bless y'all. And let's raise money so we can keep some people in their house. Peace. Thank you.
Between online donations and your phone calls, we have raised more than $17,000. Look,
We've raised, it's now up to 77,000 plus. Woo. I told you we was gonna hit 80.
I feel like crying.
And your generosity has helped us top the $117,000 mark. So thank you so much.
It's a brand new year, but things will be different. It won't be easy, but we can help you prepare. Together we can overcome these challenges. We'll help your family make informed decisions so you can go safely back to school. Stories every day on CBS 6 and WTVR.com.
Building Better Minds with Rob Cardwell.
Well, documenting history.
yeah, a local student is using his camera to capture monumental moments here in Richmond. Here's this week's Building Better Minds.
Black Lives Matter!
It's one thing to watch the social justice movements on TV or read about them online. It's another to experience them firsthand.
This one's my favorite, just because of the lighting and the shirts and just the depth.
Christian Johnson, a senior at Richmond St. Christopher's School, wanted to know more.
Just watching the protests on the news, I told my mom that it's something that I felt like I needed to do.
Even in some of the most tense situations, Christian spent days in Richmond this summer documenting what he saw with his camera.
They're not just pictures to make the protests look violent, pictures to make the protests look as peaceful as possible. They're just raw pictures of what was actually happening.
He came back after the summer, first day of school, and was really excited to show me these pictures that he had taken at the protest. And he just had showed me one on his phone, one that has an American flag, and each one was sort of better than the last. And I just said, we have to put this up. We have to show everybody.
St. Christopher's dedicated a hallway to Christian's photography and a testimonial of his time downtown. Christian hopes that fellow students and others who see the pictures will understand one thing.
First and foremost, I hope that people, when they see the pictures, they'll realize that it wasn't just riots and a lot of violent people with ill intents, that it's more people really protesting peacefully who just want change in the country.
Right now, at 5 parts of Virginia and North Carolina left devastated after Isaias brings flooding and tornadoes to the region, even turning deadly in one neighborhood. Take a look at this bird's eye view capturing images of destruction in southeastern Virginia.
Yeah, this area got hit really hard by a confirmed tornado. There's no question about it. Looking at where we are now, we've switched positions, and it looks like the first touchdown might have been about a quarter of a mile back here to my right. The damage path is fairly narrow there. Then it moved across and it hit this motel. And notice the motel has its first and second floors intact, but the roof has been ripped off. Talked to a gentleman that's in there right now discussing his eventful morning with police. He was thrown up against the wall and survived this thing without any injury.
Oh, McDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O.
Good job.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Personally, I like it, the way he talked, because it's straightforward.
Let's face it, Trump has effectively helped to wipe the Republican Party out.
I think Abby has really reinvented, for me personally, what a politician should look like.
Nick's mom is, I mean, he gets his brain from his mom, I really think.
What LeVar loves is helping people.
This mayor's had 3 police chiefs in 1 week. 3 in 1 week.
What they did to Congressman Denver Riggleman was awful.
The only reason I'm here, right, and I'm not running is because I officiated a same-sex wedding.
They felt somewhat betrayed. And you have an historic and truly remarkable election.
You can see some voters still coming in for the next hour or so. Now, there's not really been a line here, but if you were in line, you will get to vote at 7 o'clock as long as you're here by then. And of course, many people say this is one of the most historic elections we've ever seen. At the top of the ballot, the candidates for President of the United States, President Donald Trump and challenger Democratic nominee Joe Biden, both saying they've got a path to victory tonight. But it's an unprecedented election that's been reshaped by COVID-19. And it could be days before we know who the actual winner is. Voting, we're told, has been pretty smooth all across central Virginia, but with a few hiccups. Our Brendan King spoke to some voters who said they ran into some problems at the polls.
Maya Santini. I'm Wayne Colville with CBS 6 News, and of course, I've done 2 stories on you. I am amazed by you, your kindness towards your parents, and your concern for the donor and to his family. So, Channel 6 does CBS 6 Gives. You're who I wanted to give to this Christmas. So, we've got some nice presents from you from Bath & Body Works. I had a little bit of help from Trin and Bree and Catherine from Bath & Body Works. So all this is yours. And Bath & Body Works heard your story and donated all this to help CBS 6 out. It's all yours.
Can I give you a hug?
Of course you can give me a hug. Of course. You are such a wonderful person.
You can't go to the normal spots to watch fireworks, so we're bringing them to you live, right here on CBS 6. The Flying Squirrels and the City of Richmond celebrate July 4th with special celebrity guests.
Happy Independence Day, July 4th. Wow.
Happy 4th of July, Richmond.
Happy Independence Day and God bless America.
Happy 4th of July, Richmond.
Musical performances from American Idol finalist Rayvon Owen, Shanice, Taylor Dane, and Rodney Stitt. A tribute to our military heroes from all 5 branches. And a half hour of fireworks, hosted by Greg McQuaid. Richmond Together, under the lights on CBS 6.
Well, good evening to you at home, and welcome to this special CBS 6 presentation, Richmond Together, Under the Lights, presented by the Virginia Lottery. Hello to you. Happy Independence Day. I'm Greg McQuaid. It is wonderful to see you. The Richmond Flying Squirrels, along with the City of Richmond Parks and Recreation Department, they're teaming up to bring us a spectacular fireworks show here tonight at the Diamond. Things are a little bit different, but that's okay.
Christmas Parade starts now.
Well, the wait is over. It is time to kick off the Dominion Energy Christmas Parade.
working for you. CBS 6 News at 6 starts now.
I want to begin today by saying I'm sorry.
Don't try! We just watched Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney apologize in front of demonstrators. This happened today after police used tear gas during peaceful demonstrations last night. Good evening, everyone. I'm Candace Burns.
And I'm Bill Fitzgerald. Our complete coverage includes senior reporter Wayne Koval speaking with one of the demonstrators who felt the effects of the gas. And our Cameron Thompson shares Governor Ralph Northam's first comments about the unrest since protesting began.
Jake Burns begins our coverage with more on the tense conversation between Mayor Stoney and demonstrators at City Hall.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. We're actually here on 9th Street, right by Grace Street, by the Attorney General's office in the state capitol. You can see a large group of peaceful protesters have gathered here on 9th Street. They're right here by the state capitol, sending a message to Governor Northam. We've heard chants of Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe, and keep the police accountable. Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney promising to take part in this march that's supposed to head to the Lee Monument right after this. What was an intense but communicative meeting at City Hall today.
It was a graduate high school in his cap and gown out there. And he had to get maced. What are we teaching us?
A large group of protesters wait for answers at City Hall.
Stoney! Stoney!
A day after Richmond police tear-gassed peaceful protesters on Monument Avenue.
We don't want an apology. We want your resignation today.
The crowd stretched the entire block as Mayor LeVar Stoney and Police Chief William Smith stood before protesters for more than an hour.
It was wrong that what happened yesterday. I apologize for that. It should have never happened.
Stoney promised disciplinary action, but protesters say words mean little.
You're not saying anything, and that's why we're not listening. Period. We want action.
Among those action items, taking down Confederate monuments and reforming how police officers interact with citizens.
When it got dark, we stayed peaceful. And where was that same respect?
Moments of connection played out too. At one point, Chief Smith kneeling on the steps of City Hall next to protesters. The crowd still asking police to hold each other accountable.
You have to stand up against the other officers who are causing violence. You cannot stand around and be silent. I will march with you. I will stand with you. I will be with you.
Protesters across the city say economic and judicial systems have held down people of color for generations.
The community, the education, the mental health.
Getting a college degree isn't good enough. Getting 2 degrees isn't good enough. Going to law school isn't good enough. What the hell is good enough?
As you can see back out here live, the crowd about to move again through the city. The protesters are planning to march to the Lee Monument during this. We have not seen the mayor. He had promised to show up to this protest, and we understand he might be up in the front of this crowd, but we'll let you know when that happens. My colleague Matthew Fultz will be following these protesters tonight. Make sure you follow him on social media, and also at 11 o'clock tonight. Working for you in downtown Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
All right, thank you, Jake. Stay safe. The controversy came as cameras captured police firing tear gas into a crowd of what appeared to be peaceful protesters near the Lee statue last night. Senior reporter Wayne Koval spoke with a woman in the crowd who was there when the fumes began to spread. She describes how demonstrators were caught off guard and how she feels about today's apology. Wayne?
Well, Bill, a young lady walking her dog towards the Lee Monument Monday afternoon ends up with her dog in her arms, and she takes off running away from the monument because of tear gas deployed by Richmond police. Sarah Pentecost recalls the moments before and after the police aimed tear gas at the protesters.
It seemed peaceful.
As Sarah Pentecost walked towards the Lee Monument,
There was someone standing on the other side of the Lee Monument that was speaking, so I could hear clapping and cheering, but generally people were just onlooking.
but Sarah says soon the air was filled with sirens.
They just started flying down Monument.
Moments later, the air would change. Drone video shows police throwing a tear gas canister into the crowd. A protester lobs what appears to be a bottle filled with liquid at police, then more tear gas.
From what I saw, I heard the popping of them and saw him like flying into the crowd.
More tear gas canisters shot into the crowd, and some pick them up and throw them back at police. Another video shows police running into the crowd and using pepper spray. Like many others, Sarah takes off running. As I was running down the median, the cops were lining up along the grassy part, and I was like, are they gonna get me? So I kept looking like, does he have mace in his hand? Is he dressed in riot gear? Because I didn't know what was gonna happen to those of us that were running away. Sarah and others say the tear gas was not necessary. I do believe that the tear gassing last night was unprovoked. She also believes an apology is not enough. I think that they have to acknowledge their part in everything that's gone on and how they're just as responsible for a lot of the violence and destruction that happened as are the people that actually did it.
Late Monday, Richmond's police chief said he had reviewed tape of the tear gas being deployed by his officers, and he says it was an unwarranted action. The chief also says those officers have been pulled from the field and are facing disciplinary action. Working for you in Richmond, Wayne Koval, CBS 6 News.
Thank you, Wayne. Not all protesters along Monument Avenue were peaceful yesterday. Take a look at this video. Just a few blocks away from the Robert E. Lee statue, 2 people were seen climbing on top of the Jeb Stuart monument. And you can see, if you look closely, one of them has got a saw in his hand, trying to cut it down. Now, that prompted a tweet from Richmond police warning protesters about the danger of toppling statues, as unlikely as that might be, but it puts others in harm's way.
Governor Ralph Northam addressed the violent protest in Richmond for the first time since demonstrations started. Our Cameron Thompson joins us live from the Capitol with the 4 steps the governor plans to take to address the concerns of demonstrators. Cam?
Yeah, and Candace, while Governor Northam was holding his press conference inside the Patrick Henry building, there was actually one of those protests happening out along Broad Street, and you could hear those protesters through the stone walls as the governor made his first comments since the protest began.
It was heartbreaking. But that is not a new heartbreak for Black Americans.
The words from Virginia Governor Ralph Northam Tuesday after 4 days and nights of protests stemming from the killing of George Floyd by a police officer. In his first public comments since the protests began, Northam says Floyd was the latest in a long line of people killed because in America they're treated differently due to the color of their skin.
I cannot know the depth of your pain, but what I can do is stand with you, and I can support you.
Northam discussed steps his administration has and will be taking to fix inequities embedded in the system, and says to protesters he hears them and wants to work with them.
Together we can help build a place where no one fears for their life because of the color of their skin.
Northam was also joined by several people at the news conference who also called for substantial change, with one man adding it's important to include the voices of those out on the streets.
It's time to hand the baton over to a newer generation who's out there and who's making a difference in this, and this will not go away.
Well, another speaker, a rising senior at Albemarle High School, added that kids are the future and their voices need to be heard.
So all the protesters out there, please be safe, and one day I have faith that this nation will become better. Thank you.
Now, Governor Northam also touched on a phone call between President Donald Trump and states' governors yesterday, saying that the messaging he heard was not one of unity, but one of divisiveness. And he also touched on the request to send the National Guard to the District of Columbia. Northam says he rejected that for several reasons. One, because the mayor of D.C. did not request them. Two, because he did not want Virginia National Guardsmen and women to be used in a photo op. And three, he says because there are challenges and scheduled protests here in Virginia that they are needed for, and referencing the protests going on that Jake was referring to on one side of Bank Street. We are on the or rather he's on Grace, I believe. We're on the other side of the state capitol, and you would actually see some of those National Guardsmen staged here on the Capitol grounds. And again, this Capitol grounds have actually been closed for several days now because of the protests that have been happening here in Richmond. Working for you at the state capitol, Cameron Thompson, CBS 6 News.
Thank you, Cam. Yesterday, Richmond's police chief William Smith said hundreds of arrests have been made during the violent protests from the weekend. He said more than half of those arrested don't live in the city of Richmond. So we checked the state's online court database to learn more about where they're from. So far, we found at least 24 people scheduled to appear at Richmond's John Marshall General District Court facing some kind of charge related to the violence. Of the 24 names we counted, most live in Central Virginia. The court database lists Richmond as the hometown for 16 of them. Others live in Henrico, Midlothian, Chester, and Petersburg. And of course, 24 is just a portion of the 233 arrests that Richmond police say were made. We continue to dig through that database to learn more. And of course, we continue to follow the protests, both right here on air and online. Be sure to check WTVR.com, as well as our free CBS 6 breaking news app for updates. 2 Richmond police officers are hospitalized tonight after a suspect opened fire on them on the city's south side overnight. Our reporter Brendan King spoke with a witness about how that situation escalated. Brendan?
Well, today, Bill, that witness who lives nearby here in Manchester tells me he watched the entire ordeal and he started recording on his cell phone when he says he watched the encounter go quickly south.
I literally saw like a shootout.
Capturing the aftermath of an officer-involved shooting.
I just saw like kind of the flash of the muzzle of the gun go off a few times, and that's when I ran.
Richmond police say the shooting happened just before 1:30 Tuesday morning on Sims Avenue in Manchester.
I heard like a car door shut really fast, and then I kind of got up really quickly.
This witness wanted to remain anonymous, but says he watched as police confront a group walking outside.
There was a group of like, I want to say 5, 6, 7 people, black, white. It seemed like they were just trying to search them, from what it seems like, because they got pretty close.
Police say they were called for an armed party in the area.
It happened very quickly. I don't know if they found something. I don't know who shot first, but right after I saw like the flash of like the gun, I saw like 5 or 7 shots.
This video shows first responders loading one injured officer onto a stretcher and into an ambulance. 2 officers were shot, one in the leg and one critically injured in the chest, according to Crime Insider sources.
They carried somebody, put him in the police car, and then drove off pretty fast.
Police say a suspect was also shot. A closer look at the video shows officers leading someone away in handcuffs.
Right in front of the SunTrust building.
Tuesday afternoon, detectives were back out with a canine, searching the neighborhood for evidence.
I literally saw like a shootout.
After tense moments caught on camera. And I have reached out to Richmond police for an update, including the conditions of everyone involved. I'm still waiting to hear back. In the meantime, I'm told that the RPD Force Investigation Team, also known as FIT, will now handle this investigation. Working for you, Manchester, I'm Brendan King, CBS 6 News.
Thanks, Brendan. And now to our coverage of the coronavirus. Most of Virginia is set to enter phase 2 of reopening Friday, but Richmond will not. The governor says Richmond just entered phase 1 and more time is needed to monitor cases before the city moves into phase 2. Data shows infection rates have taken a downward trend despite an increase in testing. Now, phase 2 allows restaurants to have dine-in services at 50% capacity. Gyms can reopen at 30% capacity, and museums, zoos, pools, and botanical gardens can reopen with some restrictions.
But we're still safer at home. Gatherings will be limited to 50 people rather than 10. We still strongly encourage teleworking and physical distancing, and face coverings are required in indoor spaces.
Governor Northam says he will outline more details on phase 2 guidelines Thursday. GRTC has resumed its normal schedule. The transit company announced today they will complete their routes by 2 o'clock tomorrow morning and will restart at normal hours. However, passengers should know the buses could take detours to avoid any protests in areas out of an abundance of caution.
A murder investigation is underway in Richmond tonight. Officers responded to reports of a shooting in the early hours of the morning. Ahead here on CBS 6 News, where the shots rang out and what police found when they got there.
And the latest on a house fire in Hanover, where it first started and what happened to the people inside. Lane?
Candace, coming up in sports, the NFL makes a decision about training camps this summer that directly affects the Redskins and their annual visit here to Richmond. Plus, the NBA and DC community say goodbye to one of the best players the league has ever seen. Your Nissan Play of the Day from Tampa, Florida, where current and former college football players teamed up to help clean up vandalism around the area. They started with a Champs Athletic store that was burned out over the weekend, and it caught the attention of the mayor of Tampa. Now they're looking to help anyone else in the area who might need their help. These guys came from rival teams in some cases that were against each other, but for a common cause, they've come together and they're going to keep doing it.
So good to see.
Richmond police need your help tonight to solve a murder along Arthur Ashe Boulevard. Officers responded to reports of a person shot at the Roadway Inn around 1:45 this morning. Police found a man dead in the hallway on the 3rd floor. Now, if you have any information that could help investigators, call Crime Stoppers. You can do so anonymously at 780-1000. Developing now, Hanover firefighters working to figure out what caused this house to go up in flames overnight. The fire department sent us these pictures showing what they saw when they arrived at the 2-story home in Lakeview Place about 1 this morning. Firefighters say it began in the attic and then spread to the rest of the house. Luckily, everyone managed to get outside and escape unharmed.
Working for you, Kroger has announced they are looking to fill hundreds of full and part-time positions, including at stores in Virginia. The grocery chain made the announcement saying that its division has grown its workforce by more than 25% during the recent pandemic, and they need to fill even more jobs to keep up with the demand. Kroger has expedited the hiring process to just 3 days. If you're interested, you can fill out an application online at jobs.kroger.com.
The heat built slowly today, and in a way, it was just a perfect end to this 3-day stretch of awesomeness, because I've heard the heat is coming. Let's check in now with Frances Payton in the Backyard Weather Center. Frances?
The heat is coming, especially by tomorrow. We're actually looking at some heat locking in later tonight, but right now it's absolutely beautiful. We have a light breeze moving in from the southwest, but that southwesterly breeze is bringing us some warmth as well as humidity. But getting into what our high temperature, sitting at 83. That's actually kind of where we are right now in the Richmond area at 83. This morning started off wonderful. Temperatures in the low to mid 50s. We did have some low-lying clouds early this morning, a few drizzles among the area, but everyone else looked at a pretty nice morning and day. Right now sitting actually at 84, so might actually have to correct our almanac for us, but currently at 84 in the Richmond area, 82 in Petersburg. We also have 80 in West Point and 77 in Kilmarnock. As far as the rest of your evening goes, it is going to be a warm one. Temperatures remaining in the 70s, specifically in the mid 70s for the rest of your evening. We actually don't see our temperatures budge too much. We're going to stay in the upper 60s to low 70s tonight. So due to this high pressure system that has moved off the coast of the Carolinas, it's funneling in plenty of that warmth as well as the moisture. And we will definitely be seeing a difference in our afternoon high temperatures by tomorrow afternoon. So we have that high pressure system that kept us company today. As you see, mostly clear skies, but zooming out, there's a low pressure system north of us, which brought the cloud cover that we experienced early this morning. But moving on, we're going to start off tomorrow with some low-lying clouds, but it is going to warm up, sun poking out by the afternoon. Most of us remaining dry. There is just a very slim chance of seeing an isolated shower near the northern neck in Spotsylvania near Fredericksburg area for tomorrow late afternoon. Most of us, however, remaining absolutely dry, but very hot and humid for tomorrow afternoon, as our high temperatures will be in the low 90s and dew points in the 60s, and right now we're in the 50s, so you'll notice the difference for tomorrow afternoon. And the next thing that we'll be tracking, that's going to be a cold front that's going to sweep across the area on Thursday, looking at some afternoon showers, but also the possibility of seeing some storms. So in terms of our severe weather threat, we're only at a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. Our greatest threats to the area on Thursday will be damaging wind gusts, as well as this chance of seeing some localized flooding, specifically between Richmond and Petersburg. So just be cautious between those two locations. But moving on, things that are a little bit more active are the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Cristobal. It's our 3rd named storm of the season, even though it's only day 2. It looked to only rotate around itself, but now the newest prediction is that it's going to rotate around itself and then track northward towards Louisiana. Something that will be interesting to track over the weekend. It's going to near Louisiana by late Sunday. So we'll be watching for Cristobal. As for us, we have rain chances on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Cold front moves through on Saturday. A lot of dry area is going to move into place, so it's going to be a lovely end to the weekend. Temperatures also, thankfully, dropping it back into the 80s on Sunday. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Francis. Tonight on CBS 6, starting at 8, it's NCIS, followed by FBI at 9 and FBI Most Wanted at 10, and then watch CBS 6 News at 11.
Good evening, everyone. According to a report from ESPN, the NFL has told their teams they must hold this year's training camps at their team facilities. That means the Redskins will not be coming to Richmond as they have for the past 7 years. This was to be the final year of an 8-year agreement between the team and the city to hold camp at the training facility behind the Science Museum. No word just yet on whether or not that might be extended because of this decision. Well, despite their recent futility and not being able to meet this year as a group just yet, there is a renewed sense of optimism around the Redskins that comes from their coaching changes. Ron Rivera has laid out his expectations for how he wants to see the team come together when they're able. The best part about this for everyone on the roster is they have a new opportunity without preconceived notions to show exactly what they can do.
The biggest thing we want to do is make sure that we give an opportunity for each guy that's invited to our camp to come in and show us what he's got and show us how he can help us. And then if somebody is capable of doing something, that we take advantage of that as coaches and make sure we put them in the right places where they can be productive. And
former Washington Bullets All-Star Wes Unseld passed away today after dealing with numerous health issues, according to his family. Unseld played for the Bullets in both Baltimore and D.C., helping them win their only NBA title in the district back in 1978. He was a 5-time All-Star, and he and Wilt Chamberlain are the only 2 players in NBA history to win Rookie of the Year and the MVP award in the same season. He was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame and in 1981 became the first player in franchise history to have his number retired. Wes Unseld was 74.
This CBS Senior Salute is sponsored by the Virginia Lottery.
High school travel and since my childhood. And my teammates, my co-captain Faith and my little sister Sydney, and my dad for being my coach when I was growing up. It's been a really good decade of playing softball, and I hope to continue to play in college at the club or intramural level, where I'll be majoring in international business.
And we thank Caroline from Douglas Freeman for her senior salute. If you know of a senior who had their spring sports season taken away, have them send out a salute as well. And send it to us at newstips@WTVR.com. That is it from the CBS 6 Sports Desk.